Compassion in gym and the family. So what were the values that we could identify? Let's just share. One word, two words, things like that. Trust.
Respect.
Respect. Observation.
Generosity.
Generosity.
Acceptance.
Acceptance.
Freedom.
Freedom.
Consideration.
Consideration. Being considerate to others. Yes.
Lots of love.
Lots of love.
Authenticity.
Authenticity.
Acceptance.
Yeah.
Understanding.
Yeah.
Patience.
Patience. So, if we know these values, then if they manifest in every situation, these are like principles, guiding principles, and they can manifest in any situation. There is no restriction for them to be manifested. Problem comes when these values we do not understand. So then we use a filler for them. This is respect, this is patience, this is acceptance, and that we try to do it. So there is one also very good, I think they were constantly evaluating also what they're doing, how it's going about, what result it is giving. So always evaluate. Evaluation is a very important thing. And I think that always makes us relook at things again and again and again till the time we get to the final. I have a habit of what I think is the right thing, I do it and I evaluate it much later, then I realize. Sometimes my family helps me, that it is faster. But the younger generation is much better at evaluation. Okay, next. This is work functional, so we can put this on.
Should I turn off the light?
Sure. Yes. Yeah, this one. These two we can.
Yeah, that is not needed. Not needed.
Not needed. Yeah. So you must have written your questions if there are any. So one suggestion was also so that we can document what sort of questions come in this kind of module. If you could post them in the group also, so we can think about them later also, right? But I'll respond to them. So if you've written down, let's take those. जब चाय की ब्रेक लेंगे ना उसके 15 मिनट बाद जब लेंगे उससे 15 मिनट बाद ठीक है तो मैं बता दूंगा टाइम yeah if you written just ask yeah
So there are like quite a few.
yeah sir start
So when we were discussing about this conducting, so what I've realized in my experience in recent years only, and development sector especially, people who are polite, who speak nicely, but it then doesn't feel nice. So their tone is not sarcastic or something like that, but then it doesn't feel nice. It is not okay, and then I have later figured out that they're just quiet and they just don't shout and don't get angry, but the conduct is not right. So what is that like? There are people who will not raise their voice, but the way they speak, the intention doesn't feel right.
So this is the question in context of what? Content? What have you taught?
They say we are taught that we should be quiet and polite and all that. So we are doing the right thing, speaking in a right way and polite way. I have written it in some context which when we were discussing the slides only. It's not.
No, that I understand. But I was wondering where you're coming from. But if it is in
The right
context-
conduct, because it is said that because sometimes I raise my voice, and I have been told multiple times that don't raise your voice, don't be loud, and the right conduct, basically the
Maybe
is
behavior.
We've not talked
Behavior.
about right conduct as yet. Have we?
I think the behavior.
Behavior.
It's the behavior aspect,
Yeah.
but what I'm saying is not talked about the right conduct as yet.
Behavior.
Behavior, we want to talk about it. So, one thing which I've always tried is, I try to put myself in that person's place and see whether this behavior will be okay to me. That is one of the ways to see if it is right or not. Like if I sometimes I also raise my voice. So do I like people when they're speaking to me with a raised voice? That is one thing. So actions are like that. But behind every action there is a thought as well as a feeling, an emotion. We will be talking about it in more detail later. But this emotional state, its most gross form is of acceptance or of rejection. So, when you and I meet or we interact or we live together, I could have towards you acceptance or rejection.
Nothing in between.
Huh?
Nothing in between.
No. Nothing in between. So, acceptance or rejection. So, whenever I am interacting with you, I will be operating from either acceptance or rejection. I am not saying that it will always be acceptance, always be rejection. But whenever we are interacting, there is a bhav towards the other person of acceptance or rejection. So the same thing said from a person who we accept, we are ready to listen to that. But this exact same words in the same tone from a person who we have rejected is not acceptable. So there is something called accepting a person and rejecting a person. We have to be aware of that. So when people are using polite language, this gets communicated. This acceptance or rejection is communicated. Right? Even though the language is not saying I'm rejecting you, but it still gets communicated.
Yeah. Well, that's what I was saying. That the language is not, even the tone is not saying that, but then still we feel that.
Because we are capable of perceiving the emotional states. We are not very trained in it. So sometimes we make mistakes. So it's a good practice to verify.
Yes.
Ask.
That's called vibes, that achhi vibe nahi aa rahi hai, something like that.
Something like
We
that.
say
But
that.
we are able to perceive emotional states. And you can ask and get along. But so that right now I don't respond to this.
Yeah, I got my answer. So also one more question was that once we are awakened, like once the state of awakening comes, so whatever scriptures you have read, then like you have to maintain that awakening state. You have to put an effort to maintain that awakening state. Can we go back to the
This-
chaos state?
This is not based on what scriptures say.
Okay.
So what we are talking about here is this is one-time process.
So if I
It's like
understand.
once you learn how to swim, then you don't forget.
So it's a funny thing, like I have learned how to swim, but I can't swim now because maybe practice have but I'll
Okay.
learn it easily.
Like riding a bicycle, you might be out of practice initially, but it won't take you as much time. to get-
Exactly. At
right?
that time, like that.
So like that.
So,
But this doesn't go away because this you're doing all the time, no? This is being aware. How can you get away from awareness?
but that awareness has to be practiced.
The conduct is the part to practice. Once that, it's like you start seeing it. Once you've seen it, you can't unsee it.
So there is that moment of clarity. When you,
So there is what they describe, I don't know. I don't know what they are talking about. But here what we are talking about is once your awareness is there, like for example, you understand, you have the awareness that you need to be considerate to people. How will you do away with it?
I do fall back sometimes.
Then you're not aware. Then you are trying to practice something which you are not aware of, but you feel it is a good practice, so you practice that way. So awareness is knowing. That knowing has to come. That knowing never goes away. It is the only thing which is permanent in the consciousness. Awareness, knowing. That's why awakening is irreversible. Even in your dream, you will not make a mistake. Even in the dreams, you will not make mistakes. If you dream after awakening. That is what it is. Yes, please.
Ashok, I was just wondering if we could just look at that example of that, the speaking exaggeratedly to a child.
Yes.
So we were talking and you said that it was probably the first time you'd really considered it.
Yeah.
It will be interesting to see if that has stayed or not stayed at all. So can you talk a little bit about what you think that process is that allows it to become established?
So when you pointed out, it's just information, and the immediate response from me was I agreed to it. Right? Yes, this is not needed. This is exaggerating, and exaggeration is not needed. Proper communication is the need, and this only distorts the communication. So why is it coming? It is coming out of habit. Now, habit is your default setting, which without awareness you will go there. So to get awareness of this, I have to practice this knowingly at certain places, which is, it will require some effort from my part. And while practicing this, I will see the full need of this, and once the day I see it, then I don't have to practice. That's the transition.
But I think maybe that answers your question of practice also, that there is a need for practice until there isn't.
I think I still need to understand on my own. But I got some way.
See, what happens in this process is, when we try to understand this concept on the basis of prior principles that we are carrying, it doesn't work. The thing here is, this doesn't settle well with our prior understanding. This is, you listen to its entirety on its own, then you do the comparison. But if you try to build upon what you know, what you think is the right thing, or what you think is the knowledge that you have, while in the workshop, keep that out for 7-8 days, no? Or while you're listening, not even 7 days, while you're listening. Just don't try to connect this to that. That will only mislead.
So maybe it's not red or something like that, but there are so many things around us also. They say that they are awakened, or they feel like awake.
Whatever they might say, the evidence of that is harmony in human relationship, harmony in nature relationship, which is very simple truth, which anybody can observe. When I am living, you can see whether I am living in human relationships with harmony or not. You can see whether I am living with human nature relationship with harmony or not. This is very evident. So there is no need to be confused. If at any of these two fronts harmony is missing, or there is no dedication for harmony on those two fronts, that means that there is no awakening.
So awakening is 100% always. Awareness can be
Yeah, for many levels.
levels. It can be up and down.
Yeah.
So once awakening is there, it is 100.
It's full awareness continuously. Yes.
In the same example, just a clarification. So, this one-time process is that of, in that context, is that of knowing that, this is not necessary. But the practice part can take time. You know? So, just because you know something, that just because you awaken to a particular, this one-time process, does not translate to an immediate
Yes.
change in the person. The person doesn't overnight become something else, it's a process.
It will be a process because our mind, certain things are physical habits,
Mm.
but habits at the core are mental habits.
Mm.
It is how our mind works. See, the cognition that this is a child and I have to interact with it, I have to communicate with it. That is already there, that much part is okay. But to communicate with this child, because it's a child, I am distorting it by exaggerating. Now this is a habit.
Mm.
For me to change this habit, it will take some effort.
Right.
So that practice needs to be. Yes.
In the study process, we talk about the graph there.
Which one?
This particular thing that
Yeah.
we come up with an idea, and then with power of inflection, it goes to action, behavior, and the result.
Yeah.
And the result could be 2. And in some cases, the result comes after a very long time.
Right.
It's not a, so the feedback loop could be like after 10 years, like as Pashwa and Jim were sharing, that there are things which they did, they're seeing the result after, say, n number of years. Is it true or?
Yeah, of course. There can be some actions.
And then you see that particular thing was wrong, and then you try to trace it back to what exactly the root was. So that's one observation I had. Like, it's not so easy
Yeah.
to do that. The other part is that if somebody, like, if there is somebody whose real world and virtual world is same,
Mm.
whatever it can be, and he's coming up with an idea. So then that will work. Is it the case or not?
See, if that idea to work requires only him, then the chance of it working here much higher. But if it requires a lot more people, right, then for it to work, the support of others is needed. They also need to come to some common ground with him.
So if you really see, we were talking about two, idealism and materialism. So I'm just trying to draw the analogy there that idealism, in some case, there are people who see their real world and virtual world is same.
We can assume that. Yeah. See, the main person in those might be a realized person.
Yeah, so let's start from that. And that's the whole point, is like, and that's how the religion works. Like, okay, if it is that real world and virtual world is same, then if you go through the idea, things will work. So you were there, Bhavana, just asking whether it something of that sort happened or not happened.
What sort of that? Did it not work or something?
Did he try? If tried, what worked, what didn't work?
So whenever it didn't work, like he was trying to explain some things to us.
No,
We
not
had-
only that, he tried to build a community. I mean, that
He never tried to do it.
not community, what that experiment.
Nothing. He basically was a teacher and you went to him to study and he was living in a certain manner. Okay. So most of his work was basically talking to people and explaining. For his family's material needs, he had set up his farm, agriculture and his medicines and his some cattle he had, so milking those, that was the thing. And for rest, whatever time was left from that initially, he would devote it to people. Then slowly, as his family other people became responsible who could take care of the material goods, material needs, facilities. Then most of his time went into education only. Okay. In that I sometimes, oh, it's easy. Good, thanks. Yeah. So like we were coming from a modern education background. He didn't have a clue where we were coming. He was coming from a traditional educational background. He had the content with him. His expression was very different from the way we understand things. This modular thing is being done by my professor from IIT Delhi. He would say in a flow, if you listen to his, read his book Jeevan Vidya Parichay, you'll see the way he would go about things. So you needed to tune into his way of speaking, his language, his approach, his whole way of communication was from a different tradition, and we were from different traditions. So there were a lot of times there were gaps when he was trying to explain to us, we would not understand. It was more effort on his side to change his way. Well, this is not what I'll try this. If this is not what I'll try, because this has to be done. This communication has to take place. So he would redo his approach every time. And he would redo concepts in like, it is not going in like this, so let me try this. Maybe this will work with them. Slowly he got a hang of it, how to communicate with the modern mind, modern educated mind. So the intent was always there, dedication was always there, continuous there. And he was never disappointed. I never saw him disappointed. It's not working out.
So in his case also the accepted result was not desired, so he changed the ways.
So for him the desired result is not coming, so the idea, maybe this concept is not yet getting delivered, so this person's receptivity is not yet. So because initially when he started communicating his knowledge, he just gave 5 lines. That existence is coexistence, there is progression of in the material world, and there is progression in the conscious. Right? These kind of things. In Hindi, these are 5 lines. Then people around him said, we don't understand anything what he said. So then he gave about a bunch of sutras for the same thing. They said, okay, we might understand it a little bit, you might understand it, but the world will not understand. So then finally he wrote his first book. Then after that was not sufficient, he wrote 10, 12 more books. And he was speaking all the time. This is like from 1970 onwards to the time he, like 2013, 14, till that time he was healthy, so he was go. After that his health deteriorated. So, for me or for us who were with him, there was no doubt that he wasn't awakened or anything because of his conduct. It was always in harmony. That is the message we used to always say. We really, try to tear his theory apart, literally. We try to, no, this doesn't make sense, this is not right, how can you say this, science says this is what, we have seen this, all that we tried. You can hear the recording, there are 3,000 hours of recording. Anyway, but this is, I'm not trying to glorify a person, I'm just saying this I have seen that this awakening, what it does to the human being. That constant, continuous awareness which is there to the purpose. Any other questions? Yeah, mic to Rekha ji. Will you pass this one?
Two questions. One is the study of laws.
Hold it from a different place.
the study of laws governing real world,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So, the laws governing real world,
Yeah.
what
So
are those and
that we'll be talking about.
that we'll be talking
Yeah.
about.
When we talk about harmonious coexistence. That's.
Yeah, and second was, for a moment, if I could rename real world as natural world, I mean, whatever means natural world, virtual world as what? Awakened persons, this awakened
No.
now.
Imagine inner world.
In an awakened person, it is not the virtual world.
Oh, okay, what did I miss? Okay. What is it there? What are you calling that?
Imagination.
Then it is the imagination is now in tune with the real world.
Yeah.
So
So
spirituality based
virtual world is
intellect,
equal to real world
Yes.
in a,
awakened
yeah.
person.
So for a moment, if I could call that natural virtual world and natural world are in line, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Now, so that should ideally bring about the change in the current real world. When I'm calling the reality
Yeah.
when it comes to whatever distortions we've created,
Yeah,
if
yeah.
I could call that as the real world for a moment,
Ah,
so that's what's going to eventually bring about change in the real world,
Yeah.
correct?
yeah, yeah.
Through these four aspects.
Yeah. So spiritual aspect is awakened now. So the intellect is harmonized
Correct.
with the real world. So the behavior and work are also harmonized.
Correct.
So behavior means human relationships in harmony.
Yeah.
Work means human nature's relationships in harmony.
Okay.
So your impact will be in harmony.
Hmm.
And therefore, because your human relationships are in harmony, therefore you now can collaborate.
Hmm.
You have the ability to collaborate.
Hmm. And that eventually leads to the human, superhuman.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's kind of
Yeah.
progression.
Yes.
Um,
Give the mic to her.
I was just, one of the observations like, while in practice, like, it feels like I'm being critical or like watching intently like all the time. And sometimes like, it dulls spontaneity or you're just like watching intention so closely, being critical of it also sometimes, and so I don't know, like, and
Yeah. So spontaneity comes from our habits or our conditioning. Right? So if I am conditioned in a certain manner, like this example of a child approaching me, I want to communicate. So it was a very spontaneous reaction to talk in that manner. Right? So spontaneity is a function of my habits. My habits are based on some sort of a belief or what I call a filler, which is there in my conscious instead of the natural principle which should be, which is needed.
so like spontaneous.
Use the other mic. This is good.
there's some like vulnerability when you're spontaneous. Like there's that quality of vulnerability. And I don't know, like if you're watching like or measuring like all the time, that's something of there's a loss. Would you say that? Like there's that vulnerability is like you just I don't know. I mean, it probably would it translate to being guarded or
So
I'm wondering.
So when you're guarded, it's usually towards the outside. Whereas this is something you identified as a need in yourself, and you're evaluating your action is in alignment with that need or not. So that's very different from being guarded. Like somebody might judge me, then I'm guarded. That's towards somebody in my surroundings will judge me. This is not coming from that. I am not, at times I am not living up to my own expectations. And I already mentioned that this is the biggest pain that you can feel when you don't live up to your own expectations. It's the biggest cause of unhappiness. I am thinking like this and I am living like this. Yes.
No,
Pass this mic.
I want to pass it to
Dishka too.
because you said something very interesting about spontaneity once. Do you remember? Put it really well. I don't know if you can put it again like
When?
that. On the group call, you said something about when the question was asked that about like watching what you're doing. Does it reduce the spontaneity? Like,
Oh yeah.
in relationships and things. I don't know.
Do you remember?
I mean, it's
Coming.
reinstalling. And
The program is running, booting.
Yeah.
Pass the mic to her.
Prachi, do you remember? It was us. No?
Is there recording?
I mean, it was something.
Do you remember?
Yeah. No, I know a little bit, not as well. Maybe.
Say something maybe.
No, this won't go. This is a good mic, so this won't go. This is very short cable.
Pashwa.
Now, Pashpa can use this. Yeah, turn it up.
I mean, I don't know if I can say it as well, but basically, like what you're saying, like our spontaneity comes from just, it may come up in the moment because we're not aware of what we're doing, but it comes from a certain habit. That it's just, it comes up without thinking, and it just, our emotions are just pop out in that kind of way, in an easy, casual way. But actually, once we've understood like what the principles of relationship and seeing ourselves in a more aware way, then we are spontaneous in a much more regulated way. So the spontaneity comes as well, but it's actually, it comes in harmony rather than, because I mean, lots of people are spontaneous, but actually it doesn't feel nice for the other person because spontaneity isn't always, so it's like the value of spontaneity is given a higher value than actually what is an orderly thing. And actually you can have spontaneity, but once you're aware and have more understanding of relationships, then you're able to be spontaneous as well as harmonious. That's what I feel.
I can also add this part, like when we're talking about this mindfulness while learning, right? Which we are saying being guarded, like for example. This is needed till the time you have mastered it. Once you mastered it, then it becomes part of your nature. Then you're not guarded anymore. Then it is spontaneous. So you basically, the habits which are incomplete, you have to replace them with other habits which are complete. Or habits which are imbalanced have to be replaced with balanced habits. So during this transition, you need to be aware and you need to be watchful. But the way to live is not that. The way he was talking, where he was saying that flow. What was the term you used?
Yeah,
Slow state.
Flow state. Like that.
Yeah, I remember the context now. It was in context of interacting with people, and sometimes people around you cause you to feel frustrated, and then you feel like, I don't want to be contrived, I want to be spontaneous and natural in how I am, and naturally, spontaneously I'm feeling frustrated, so I don't want to hide that. And that's the contradiction that it seems like, that either I'll be my spontaneous self, which is unpleasant and unharmonious, or I'll be a facade, which is not my real self, but it will seem like it's harmonious. So that was the context of our conversation, and then we were discussing the same thing, how, if I know my deepest value is to be harmonious, then even in that moment when I'm feeling frustrated, if I'm in touch with that fact that I want to be harmonious, it is not a facade that I'm not, trying to expel that anger at the other person. Because that's a deeper truth of my own. It's my own spontaneous, natural truth that I don't want to subject them to my agitated state. And that I can come down to normal. And right now it will take more effort, maybe more time. But what I want to be with them is harmonious. That's my deepest value. So to be completely spontaneous so that I don't even feel frustrated in that situation with them, it'll take me some work and initially it'll take me a long time from going from frustrated to natural and then sharing or communicating my maybe disagreement or whatever with them. But eventually as I pay more attention to this, do it more mindfully, eventually it becomes second nature. You spot yourself. Even before you start getting frustrated, you understand where the other person is coming from. You don't get frustrated and you're able to respond appropriately. Even if you might disagree, it can be communicated in a natural way. So I think if you understand your deeper values, then spontaneity doesn't mean hiding your frustrations or anything. It just means giving room to the other sides of you also, because there are other parts of me that are not frustrated and care about this person.
Yeah, at the end of
Not working. Like,
No, it's
yeah,
working.
at the end of this whole
It's
thing,
working.
it's about
this like switch.
spontaneity at what cost and being harmonious at what cost. Is
Yeah.
it being harmonious with the facade or being spontaneous without harmony? It's like at what cost, either ends of it.
And even, in fact, it's not spontaneity versus harmony.
Correct. Yeah.
It's spontaneity coming from a deeper level,
Yeah.
basically.
And it's not even it's like harmony cannot become such a big thing that you fake it, It's
Yeah, that's not.
it needs to be a natural byproduct of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a result.
Yeah.
It's a result.
Are we
Yes.
complete?
You were going on, no? You complete first, then I'll go.
Yeah, no, this was a separate question. This I just wanted to mention that.
Oh.
The question is, at one point you mentioned this line which I just couldn't understand. I didn't want to ask because you said you had mentioned something like opposing forces balances things.
That is what I was saying.
Huh.
When we don't have the understanding of natural laws,
Yeah.
natural regulation and natural balance,
Yeah.
then we bring in fillers.
Hmm.
And I was giving an example of an incomplete concept,
Mm.
like opposing forces balance. Bring balance. So if something is happening,
Mm.
if we do something opposite of it, it will balance it out. I'll give you a very simple example.
Hmm.
Like, we all feel we must be eating healthy food. Yeah? So there are times when I've noticed that we go about it like this. Like, I've been eating healthy food for 6 days. Now I have enough positive things, now I can junk out. It will be bad. These are not many concepts like this.
I was just thinking with, even with thunder,
Yeah.
before we understood it, people filled that space with something else, right? They
Yeah.
filled it with a god.
Yeah.
So we do that with everything all the time, basically. So
It was example of filler.
Yeah.
You always say opposites attract,
Yeah.
but we like to hang out with like-minded people.
Yeah, that I could never understand.
So there's so many narratives like that. And these small, what do you call them? I don't know how to name them. What would you call them? These
Tropes.
the modern proverbs.
Tropes.
Tropes, okay. Which are floating.
Memes.
Memes.
Memes, yeah, memes also. Memes is a form of it. It's already time. Okay? Starting late.
We started early.
So let's have more tea because tea will get cold and today tea is much needed. Come back in 15.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So just a small check. The first step is what, then it comes to why, and then how just
Follows.
follows. First is identifying. But
What am
my
I?
life-
Why am I?
okay,
So why, the purpose answers why.
the purpose answers why.
Purpose is the response to why.
The whole life I'm like, how to, that's the problem.
So like the example they were giving about parenting, right? So they wanted to good parenting, they want to do good grades. And the why also was there for them, because they want the child to become a good human being. Now how? So whatever goodness there is within them, that only will get transferred. That is the principle directly. So that manifested in many forms.
So how is not even, it just comes.
No, you require some learning there too, no? How follows, the principle also follows. See, if we were discovering it for the first time, it will take a lot of effort. Right? But suppose you know something, and I also come to the same conclusion, I can always ask you, how to do this?
Okay.
Then you can guide me, I can do it. It will be much quicker.
That's with the community.
Yes, polite.
So now I think we learn natural laws and regulation, what are natural, those.
That also will come to, but there are other things which we have to do. What do you do?
In a relationship, either there is an acceptance or there is a rejection. So, like if there is, let's say, ego between two people, and they also care about each other. So, is it a rejection or is it an acceptance? Because they obviously care about each other, but because there is ego, the care, or basically there is no line of communication.
So it will depend from one situation to this other situation, whether and this you can only observe in yourself. I don't know about the other. So I'm aware of this when I'm talking to somebody, whether there is a feeling of acceptance or rejection in me. Once I identify that, if there is a feeling of rejection, then I immediately know what happens in me, why is it there? This should not be there. There is something wrong with me, my perception of this person. I have to correct this. Right? So we can't say about what is happening in two strangers, what is happening. I can't comment on that. They have to see that. So for you can check this.
But with acceptance, there can be other problems as well. Like it's not like.
Yeah, there can be many problems. Problems can be many. But if there is rejection, then we're not even ready to communicate properly.
Can there be an acceptance?
Right?
Can there be acceptance, rejection pair, or if you are really accepting, you're operating from that, then it will translate. Or no, you cannot guarantee what will happen for the other person. You can only look at yourself.
If I have rejected you and you have rejected me, so there is less chance of any acceptance. Suppose you accept me and I have rejected you, there is a better chance of my rejection changing into acceptance.
In some future, in near future, or whenever.
Yeah. But that will depend on how much I get inspired by your conduct. Not only the acceptance, your conduct, are you living with trust with me, with respect with me or not? That is the only thing which will work. To turn that rejection to acceptance is whether you are living with me with trust and respect. So that is very important. Affection, trust, respect, these are three things which are very much needed in relationships to heal the relationship.
Affection, trust.
Yes. We'll talk about these three.
Just before we left, we were talking about that spontaneity thing.
The system doesn't want the spontaneity.
Yeah. I remember.
Spontaneously it goes off.
Yeah. I remembered the conversation we had while talking to Shabar uncle. And it was basically that time what we were talking about and what I had what had clicked to me was when we're getting frustrated or agitated in a conversation or upset, actually what's happening is we're out of control. Our triggers are set by some default long back. We aren't in control of
Some
those.
conditioning.
Not conditioning, I wouldn't call it conditioning, some weird short circuits have formed. Yeah.
So whatever environment factors or events which have taken place, they have conditioned us to be triggered by this.
Yeah. Whether or not the other person means that or they mean something else. We've kind of short-circuited some shortcut in our subconscious brains that tell us, okay, if this sort of expression is there, it means that I'm being disrespected, or if this tone of voice is there, that means I'm being whatever our triggers may be. So then that's what usually frustrates us in a conversation or in any situation or triggers us. And what we call being spontaneous in that moment or being true to ourselves, actually those were the words we were using, that's why I'd forgotten. We often say that I need to be true to myself in that moment and express my frustration. But actually that is not myself. Those are some default auto mode circuits that I have created that I actually did not consciously choose, that I have not thought through, that I have not actually applied my values and reasoning to. They have just happened somehow. And what is really true to myself is what I have consciously thought about, considered all the things that I care about, that I value, and come to conclusions for. That's my true self. That's my genuine self. So when I'm getting triggered and shouting out or reacting, I'm actually not in control. It's not that I'm being spontaneous. I am just getting carried away. It's when I take control back in my hand, that's when I'm being spontaneous and true to myself. So when we're
not being true to ourselves, or when we are being true to ourselves, the statement we are saying, it's actually a coping mechanism. It is a mechanism because we don't have the actual thing there. So we have built a defense mechanism. It always brings up something. So it is one of those things.
Yeah, it's not me. It's some like gear shift that's happening automatically.
But it's important to me because it helps me cope up with that situation in some manner. So it's dear to me.
Whether or not it actually helps,
yeah,
it's not in my control.
But in short term, I have concluded that's why it is with me in my But in long term,
I haven't consciously thought about it. I haven't consciously checked whether this is actually helping me cope or not. So for some reason, we can call it coping mechanism, but we actually haven't chosen it to cope with something. We end up using that to cope, but it's not like we are consciously doing it. It is happening out of our hands. It's not me. What is me is what I choose consciously.
Right.
That is what is actually true to myself.
Right.
And when I do that, it's not like I'm stopping something. I'm stopping myself. It's not like I'm holding myself back. It's like I'm bringing myself forward.
Right.
Can you also call it as if the priority of opinions takes over the priority of relationships, and that's when spontaneous.
Yeah.
And then at some point we start observing.
Yeah, use the mic.
Once the
It's not
spontaneous.
on. Yeah.
Once the spontaneous action occurs, then we tend to get into again observation mode and then kind of circuit.
So sometimes our attachment to our opinions supersedes the relationship. And on those moments, this is what he was saying, in those moments we consider that spontaneous, that this is very important to me, this opinion, this is how I feel about things. And that can sometimes harm our relationships. So one of the things we talk about, and we'll be talking about it later, is that how justice is about giving highest priority to the relationships. So, and the value is in the relationship. So then opinions or issues are not as important as the relationship. No issue is more important than the relationship. So that we will talk about it later.
And it's not like we consciously think that no, this opinion is very dear to me, therefore I have to defend it. It's just that at some level we identify with our opinion. We mistake because we don't know who I am.
Right.
Therefore we think, oh, my opinions are me. So if that is getting challenged, I am getting challenged.
Right.
So even this is happening unconsciously. So the only solution to that is to become consciously aware of who I am. That is me becoming more genuine and true to myself and bringing myself above. Otherwise, I'm just getting pushed around by
strange forces from the outside.
Okay. Any other questions on this? Should we move forward? Okay. If there are, just send those questions. We'll take them up in the next session of questions. So this we talked about, but there is a slide for this also. I'll be sharing this. Here I've used the term net production over the more than consumption in a lifetime is non-exploitative. Actually, the word should be is being fair, is being just. In that aspect, being just is when my contribution in production and services is more than the net consumption I have done. We need to have a mechanism to calculate this too. Yeah. But we have not paid attention to this, so there are no mechanisms for this to be prevalent. We'll have to think about this. How much materials, facilities that we utilize. And we'll have to maybe take a scale on which all the facilities can be put, added. Like if you're using these many clothes, then X, these many instruments, then some number, and this. So we have a score on that. Like carbon footprint is for how much energy we are using. So something like that will be for this. Shabir bhai come up with something like this. All the facilities that we are using in a lifetime, how do we see and how do we value production in those numbers? Yeah, we need a matrix for that. How to? Not matrix, metrics. Okay, so this we know. Should I move forward? I talked about this earlier.
It feels like there should be a caveat in there though that I might be a super producer, but then I'm actually taking a lot from the material world.
Yeah.
So even though I've used less than I've produced, I may have taken a lot more than what might be a just amount from nature.
And the same principle also applies, how much am I taking which is depriving others of their fair share. That also has to come. So these resources that we're using on this planet, these are shared resources. So if one person is using more than their share, then we are going to deprive somebody. And that can never lead to harmony. Yeah.
And this is a system level thing.
Yeah. No.
This is a system level thing because even if I personally understand it, let's say I need 2 pair of whatever X number of clothes, this is what is justifiable to me. But still there is an industry which is producing clothes whether I buy or not.
Right.
So, like I can be conscious, but I'm saying it's a systemic problem. It can't be one person or small group even becoming conscious will not solve it until as a society we become conscious of it.
It will not solve it, but it will be a very small step towards solving it. That we should not lose sight of. Otherwise it becomes a vicious circle. Because we can't solve it, therefore we won't change. Because we don't change, nothing can be solved.
Would my net production include generosity? Because I'm consuming. Can I just pay back with giving?
Meaning?
Meaning my net production should be more than consumption in a lifetime. I'm consuming so many things.
Yeah.
So if my starting
So how will you
giving
give?
back
So what will you give? Where is that coming from?
material things only.
So where are they coming from?
Those which I am using or I have
So where do you have them from?
from the material world.
In the sense, have you inherited them or have you done some production or service? That's why you have them.
Yeah, I bought those.
No, what I'm saying is, when what we say, the materials that I'm consuming, right? So these consumption, whatever facilities I'm using, I'm consuming. This is my consuming side. What am I giving back to the society in terms of production and work? This is what I'm consuming.
Okay.
Okay, this has got nothing to do with money. So if I'm wearing this jacket, I'm wearing this trouser, I'm using this projector, I'm using this laptop, table, room, house. Right, some of them I'm using individually, some I'm using in a shared manner. So some I'm using all these things. So because I'm using these products, what am I contributing in society for the facilities, in the production and the goods and the services terms? So I have to participate in that.
Yeah, I have to give service rather than material.
Service or material, you have to participate. And this is for basically understanding that work is an integral part of the human life. Because he or she is consuming material facilities, therefore needs to participate in production and service of facilities. And this is not about proving it to anybody else. It is a thing which you have to evaluate in yourself. You have to see it for yourself. Because you are the one who knows whether you are being just or not. It is a lens, your lens on yourself. So most of these things which we are talking about, these are not judgment of other people. This other person bothers us quite a lot. Right? Here we are talking about ourselves. This is for me. This is for looking at my conduct. It is to look at my thoughts, my attitude, my emotions, my understanding. This very quickly shifts to the other. And that is when these things will never make sense. Because we don't know. We don't know what the other person is feeling or thinking. We are just making a guess by their actions. Watching their conduct, we make an intelligent guess. This is what they might be thinking or this is what they might be feeling. We actually don't know. So till the time there is a very fine-tuned relationship, you would not be able to make a optimal guess of knowing what it is actually. So you only actually know about this conscious aspects within you. So first harmonize these. Yeah.
So here I'm assuming it's needless to say that the production that we are talking about, goods, services and all of that, are in line with
In harmony with nature. Yeah, of course. It will not be damaging.
harmony with nature. As I was speaking, I realized the
It's not needless to say though. It's still needed to say.
Yeah.
It's in the definition of when we do righteous wealth and all that.
yeah.
And how about the intangible things that we receive, like care from our parents and giving back, forgiveness and
Of course. Yeah. So that also we have to, we can also look at it as a transaction, but there is also a larger feeling behind that. Because I can be caring, therefore I'll care. And who will I care for? People around me. I can care for my parents, I can care for my siblings, I can care for my children, I can care for my friends, I can care for my neighbors, I can care for my colleagues. Yeah. Because caring is human nature. I am being human, or this is humanness to care. So if we start looking at and start naming it like that, that it is human to care, and it is, even though some of you might not like the language, it is animal to exploit. That's why we call it animal consciousness.
Even though they don't exploit.
That's what I'm saying. Some of you might not like the language, but because for human the word animal is not appropriate. So it just create a little bit of discomfort. No, but in animals also there is cheating. There is tricking. There is trapping. And there is killing and hurting. That is in according to their nature and in terms of the natural balance. What I'm saying is for humans it doesn't make sense. To say that animals don't trick, don't cheat, don't trap, don't kill would be a falsehood.
When they do it, it's not exploitation, but when we do
It is a kind of exploitation, but they don't have the awareness of exploitation or justice.
It doesn't cause
Disharm.
harm.
They don't hurt.
It's a very small level. It's a very small level, like individual.
They are doing their role in the society.
They're not aware of the goal or role or anything. They're just doing what comes to them, and it is the net result which is in balance.
Animals don't have the
Sorry.
animals don't have the capacity to understand that this other animal also wants to live, or that they don't have the ability to empathize as much as humans do. So when they are taking away from something, they are doing it within their awareness, and so it's not like they're doing it to hurt them. Humans have the capacity to see the effect that it's happening, that it's having on the other, and yet when we kind
Still
of
do it.
when we do it despite that, that's what is cruel.
Okay, moving on. A little bit about humane economics. So humane occupation is, we talked a little bit about that when there are two parts to it. One is that it should not harm the ecological balance. And second was that whatever we are participating in, whichever occupation we are participating is, that field or that trade is useful for the humankind. It is not harmful to humankind. So, is that? Is that? Hello, 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 yeah. So these are the two conditions for humane occupation. So that it is in harmony with the natural cycles, and it is in harmony with the human order. So there are two orders that we were talking about, the natural order and the human order. It is harmonious in both the orders. Then self-regulated consumption. So mindful consumption. Self-regulated consumption. Right utilization. So whatever facilities we have taken, or whatever resources we have utilized for making a facility now, it should be properly utilized. Because it's got some cost to the nature as well as society doing this. So if it is not utilized, all that effort is waste. So right utilization and conservation. Because like we are using water, we are using land, air, forest, we have to conserve them so that the future generation can also utilize them. So our manner of utilization has to be that they get conserved. The sources are not destroyed. Right now, because we are not doing right utilization, the conservation is not taking place because we are over-exploiting the resources. Or we are exploiting the resource. Let's not call it, there is nothing over-exploitation. There is only exploitation, not conservation. So we are exploiting the resources, therefore the resources are slowly diminishing, and one day they will finish. So this conservation doesn't take place. So at our end, for us to make use of any facility, it just comes from immediate circumstances. Okay, this will be convenient, this will be nice, this will be okay. And is it really needed? That check you are not putting right now. So the awareness, that check also starts coming in. What is actually needed? And what, again, we're going back to last night's presentation, the first one, in which we quoted Gandhiji, like there is enough for everybody's need, but not enough for one man's greed. Okay, moving on. I did this because there is Kandan.
Huh?
Kandan, where is she? She's not here. Okay. So she had asked me about this question, so I'll share. So this is done. Okay. Now let's come to Jeevan. What is actually Jeevan? So this is a table describing all the faculties that we have in our mind or in Jeevan. Okay. Now this is the 20 odd things that we have, or more than 20 in fact. Yeah. So this table represents our conscious, which we have named Jeevan. Right? So it has 5 main faculties. This one thing has 5 main faculties, just like my body has a head, it has arms, it has legs, it has forehead. So there are 5 things in this. First one is called Man, second is called Vritti, third one is called Chit, fourth one is called Buddhi, and the fifth one is called Atma. And this is from outwards to inwards. So it's like a unit which has something at its core, which is we call it Atma. Outside it is Buddhi, outside it is Chit, outside it is Vritti, and the Man. And the Man is the thing which interacts with the body. So Man interacts on one end with the body and on the other end with Vritti. Vritti interacts with Man and Chit. Chit interacts with Vritti and Buddhi. Buddhi interacts with Chit and Atma. Okay.
This is what powers or like is it layers?
You call it layers if you want to call that. It's an entity, like I am an entity, body is an entity. So there is a head, it has different function. Arms have different function, legs have different function, like that. These are different parts of one unit. Every unit will have some components. Right? So these are 5 parts of it. And these are the 5 functions of it.
How power and force are defined?
One is like the potential, and that potential when it acts is called force. Like I have the potential to run. I have the ability to run and the energy to run also. Right? I can run. That is the potential. But I am not running. When I am running, that is I am utilizing that potential. That is the force of running. So in action, it is called force. In state, it is called power. In Hindi, the word is sthiti gati. Okay. it's a correction. This is Drishta's chart, not mine.
No, this is not mine.
This is.
Hey, this. Oh, you haven't animated it.
Huh?
It's animated.
Okay. What were we supposed to do? This.
Oh.
Choice.
Okay. Yeah. So choice and experience, analysis and comparison, visualization and contemplation, resolve and enlightenment, evidence and anubhav. These are the 10 activities of the conscious. Man, it is active, it hopes. What it does is, it expresses hope. Vritti expresses thought. Chit expresses desire. Buddhi expresses wisdom, and Atma expresses authentication. Or we can, other language we can say, Man functions as hope. Vritti functions as thought. Chit functions as desire. Buddhi functions as wisdom, and Atma functions as authentication.
And what was that you mentioned earlier? Body interacted man and Vritti.
Yeah. So this is the level of Man, this whole line, and this interacts with the body.
So, okay. And man interacts with Vritti.
I'll again say it. If you don't understand, so Man will interact with the two things which are adjacent to it, body and Vritti, which will Man with Chit with this, and Buddhi with this, and this, like that. Okay.
Then what is Sthiti Gati?
That was just, Sthiti Gati was something which is there in the potential. Like we have the ability as Man, and therefore we can hope. In action it is called hope. Right? In hope of happiness we are doing everything. Similarly, we can think. Right? So Vritti is the potential to think. Thinking is its force or gati. So these are sthithis, and this is the functions they do. In action, this is what they do. And hope is, in humans, the hope is only for happiness. In hope of happiness, we do everything. Right? So whether we are doing bodily functions, it is in hope of happiness. If we are doing some actions and relationships, that is behavior, then again it is in hope of happiness. And whether we are doing work, it is again in hope of happiness. So all that we are doing is in hope of happiness. Right? Thought. Thinking is also for happiness. It is to determine what is happiness. Thinking is our ability to determine what is happiness. So that for this we need to do analysis and comparison. Right? I'll explain this a little later more. Then desire is basically to live happiness. To live happily is the function of desire. And wisdom is for is understanding of happiness. And authentication is realization of happiness, and because of realization there is authentication. So in hope of happiness, what we are doing, there are two activities we do. One is called choice or choosing, and experiencing. So like, I'm talking right now and I wanted to sit, so I came here and sat. So this is a choice. This happens first in the mind and then I sat. Right? That choice is made and execute that with the body. Or the words I am speaking. I am making a selection of the words which I am speaking. In these two examples, I am also experiencing the fact that I sat down. So what I did, a signal of that is going to be that I sat down. I experienced that. Right? This, even though sitting is by the body, my body is sitting on this chair, but the fact that I've noticed that I'm sitting, this noticing is taking place, this is what I'm calling experiencing. Right? So you're experiencing sitting. Or when I'm speaking, when I'm choosing the word and speaking, what I'm speaking is also getting registered there, that I've spoken this. So that is experiencing. Right? So whatever you choose, you also experience. Sometimes you choose to experience, sometimes you choose and then experience. Both happen.
Man is the one choosing.
It is the choice is the activity of mind. Experiencing is also activity of mind. Okay. In hope of happiness. So all these choices and experiences. So experience, we want to. What does man want to experience? Happiness. So it makes choices. So there are three qualities of choices it can make in three ways. Three: sensation, values, or purpose. So when our awareness is to only body, then man is trying to experience sensations. And the choices are of various sensations, and we are trying to experience happiness. So wherever we feel good, we say we experience happiness. Like that. That I'll come to. So in the thought is for determining what is happiness. So to choose, I need some basis. Should I sit or should I stand? Right? So for this basis, I need to do comparison and analysis. Right? Analysis is basically the exercise of separating something, identifying something and separating it from other. Right? How many people are wearing specs in this world? Right? So specs is the one factor we have taken, and we are identifying things. Right? 4, 5, 6, 7 people are wearing specs. This activity is called analysis. From a bunch, we are separating some on basis of some characteristics. This function we do, analysis. So all the computers, all this talk about AI, basically they're analyzing machines. They're very good at this. We have outsourced this part. Right? And comparison is basically to see what we prefer. It is basically for our preferences. So,
Sorry,
comparison is for making our priority list, basically. I have just seen another word in this.
अशोक जी ये वाला स्लाइड अगर आपके पास हिंदी में भी होगा
सब होगा मिल जाए
तो वो आप हिंदी वाला भी शेयर कर दीजिएगा।
राइट. So the comparison that we do, there are two sets of bases we have. One set of bases is likes, health and profit, the other is justice, righteousness and truth. By default we are only using this set, likes, health and profit. This set is needed when we start thinking about living in harmony. Then only this is needed. Otherwise it is not needed. So I'll just go to how this functions. Analysis, understood what it was. The comparison I'll just explain to you with an example. You just go to the next slide. We'll come back to that one. So this likes and dislikes is one criteria we use for comparison. Like we go to drink tea, right? So some of us drink it because we like. Some of us don't drink it because we don't like it. Right? Then there is another criteria. I go there to drink tea and I say my throat is very hurty. This hot tea will be very good for my throat, so I'll have it. So now the reason is not likes and dislikes, it's suitable for my health. That is also one criteria that we use. Or I'll take the example from here, that tea one. Like I go there for tea, I say, oh, tea, I really love tea, I'll have it. So that is a decision made on basis of like. Or I go there, tea, I don't like tea, I don't want to tea. So dislike also is basis. So like, dislike, that is what. My throat is hurting, therefore I'll have it. It's suitable for my health. Or I have too much acidity right now. If I drink tea, it will just complicate me. So I won't have it. So unsuitable for me. So won't have it. So this is also criteria. Oh, I've already paid for it, so I must have. Probably. Right? Or somebody is come here, well, I have to pay for it. So I won't have. So like that. So these are the criteria we use for making decisions. And we have a preference in this. We make a priority list in this. This is how we decide. So somebody could be at some time predominantly using this criteria. Some people at some time could be using this criteria predominantly or this criteria. And we can sometimes shift from this to this depending on our circumstances.
There's
Yes.
no criteria like we feel sleepy and then we have to pay. Because we feel sleepy, so we want to have.
So sleepy will come
doesn't
back.
fit into life.
Yes. But then the question would be, why do you want to stay away? Huh?
To listen to the session.
So listen to this, right? So why are you listening? Because you're liking it.
Because you paid for it.
Huh? Yeah, that could possibly.
I want to know, so that's why I'm
Huh?
asking. I want to understand.
Yeah, I'm giving you a proper answer.
So where does it fit in?
I think it can fit anyway. Like for me, I think it helps in my health-centric thing. If I learn Jeevan Vidya, something is gonna, kind of whatever happen, and I'll be able to align myself better. So I guess it depends.
But then
Yeah.
we also do a lot of things for some purpose. It's exam hai.
The exam क्यों है?
I obviously don't like it.
Right. So then Maybe it's not even healthy.
Profitable.
Maybe for someone else's.
For some- my father will get upset maybe if I don't get it. And I don't like that.
No, yes, we get it.
We have to trace the reason, actual reason where we're coming from. So you see, it will fit somewhere there. बहुत बोर हो रहे हैं Okay, so this is how we set. But this set of criteria for decision making is for functioning as a body. These three are needed. It's not wrong criteria. This is essential for maintaining our body. So we call it, for staying alive, these three criteria are very important. Likes, dislikes, suitable, unsuitable, profit, loss. Right? But humans are not meant to only to merely be alive. We want to be happy, we want to be in harmony. So if harmony becomes our priority, then there is another set of criteria. It's called just, unjust, where this is relationship centric. So relationship, the harmony in relationship is the highest priority for us. So we do things which are just, which will create harmony in relationship, and those things which will harm the relationship, we consider them as unjust. So that criteria is needed when we want to live in harmony in relationships. When we want harmony in the order, like in the human order or in the nature, right? Then that criteria is called righteous, unrighteous. Like this will harm the order, or this will nurture the order, or this is in alignment with the order, this is not in alignment with the order. So that, like for example, if we are here in this workshop, and if I'm sitting here and I'm distracted, I'm playing something on my phone, right? It will disturb the order, right? So this is a very small example. Like more like okay, if I don't go to the class on time, then people will wait for me, and the class will not start. Okay, so things will get delayed. This will disturb the order. So you make a decision accordingly. Right? It could also be the class will not start, and then people will think of me as a bad person, which I won't like. That could also. But orderliness, the harmony in larger numbers, which is what we are calling orderliness, that becomes our priority. Then that is the righteous and righteous. In Hindi, the term for the first one is nyay, anyay, and for the second one is dharm, adharm. Dharm, adharm is also used as right and wrong. Dharm means thing that has to be done, and adharm means which is not to be done. Right? So righteous, unrighteous in that essence. Right? To be done, not to be done. Or which is an alignment with the order or not alignment. That is one criteria. The third is truth, untruth, which is satya, satya, which is basically this is basically for the continuity of things. When that is our highest priority, like the one we talked about, no? Like the continuity of the humankind or continuity of the four orders on the planet Earth. This kind of criteria, I'll give examples of each, then you'll all understand. But this is more on continuity centric. We don't hamper the cycles, any of the cycles. So whenever we are aware of the cycles and we align ourselves to the cycles of nature, whether in the human domain or in the natural domain, that is being truth or untruth. Right? If it hampers the cycles, then that is untruth, and if it nurtures the cycles, it is truth. For example, when we are doing farming, the conservation of the seed, or we were talking about production right now, we talked about humane production. So in humane production, conserving the sources, continuity of the sources, that will be the criteria of truth. Because these sources need to be available for the future generations. So therefore, I will not exploit. I will only do the right utilization of this sources. So to nurture the continuity, not to break the continuity, that is your criteria, that is truth and truth. Right? But these three are basically for harmony. Till the time harmony is our priority, we function with these. The comparisons that we do, the decisions that we make. Preferences, we set our preferences on basis of these criteria. So this doesn't come by default, this comes by default. This comes through education, this comes through awareness, the right hand side. Okay.
Can I just add?
Yeah.
Oh. So I think another, in addition, how I look at this is that just and unjust is about harmony in our interpersonal relationships, one-to-one. And order, righteous and unrighteous, is about the network of relationships. So any order, any system is about a whole network of interconnected relationships. So to be just for that entire network is righteous and or unrighteous. And then truth is for that temporal continuity of that network of relationships. So at the end of the day, it is still harmonious relationships, but its scope is increasing in space and time.
Right.
So at the end of the day, basically it's about harmony in relationships.
Good point.
It is many to many and the time is not affected. The last one. Many to many and time is not affected.
No, it's through time.
Yeah,
that's
that's
why I
right.
continue.
So you said that these the LLP comes only with education. Then
And education is study of coexistence, study of natural laws and natural regulation. Yeah.
but then we see that kindness or righteousness, it's very humane to us. Like a kid knows that it's wrong to kill an insect. So then it doesn't only comes through education, right? It's also a part of our nature.
So this whole, see, this comes with the understanding of the whole complete existence as coexistence and with self-awareness. These three criteria. Before that, we have these words in language, and we also have some fillers for this. We have some sort of definitions that we have made up for them. Like being just. What do we mean by being just?
So that there's harmony and like equal, like the other person doesn't feel exploited.
So why are we not able to live it?
So what I'm trying to say is that we are not able to live like that as adults, but the chances of being unjust are greater in adults, but let's say in kids who have not been part of this complex society as of now. So maybe these
If you take few children, like for example, in a school, if there are say 10 children in a class, and there is no teacher around, no adult around, do you think they'll be just to each other?
there are like higher chances, I think.
You need to do more observation.
No, like, for example, I see that kids have a tendency to share things like you want this, you want that.
In some situations,
There is
yeah.
no concept
In
of
some
sharing in
situations,
kids
yes.
until 6, 7.
In other situations, no.
And also that killing insect part, like who loves insects still kills.
I've observed,
So,
curiosity to
yeah,
know what
I'm not
happened.
doubting your observation. I'm sure you've observed such incidents. But if you look at overall, this, and there is another question which you have to ask us. Is living by justice, if it is a higher value, why would it go away if that awareness is there? We're defining awareness as something which once it is there, it doesn't go away. It's not circumstantial. We are aware in likes, dislikes, suitable, unsuitable, profit, loss. We are aware in this. So it never goes away in any situation. Right? This we feel it might be there, because we have the language for it. But word is not the reality.
Sorry, could you just press the button on your thing? On your
Mic.
mic.
Hello. Hello. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry. Not happy. Yeah. Yeah.
Just to figure whether I've understood this right, did you at any point imply that if the decision making is based on the right side set of reasoning, somehow the left side aligns?
Yes.
Yeah, that's what you mentioned,
Yeah.
right?
It doesn't go away.
Yeah.
It gets regulated.
Correct. So like for example, if I'm making decisions based on this, since the higher the purpose is in such a way that I'll obviously like the decision that I'll make based on this,
Yeah.
because that's where I'm headed, and it will be healthy relationship and well-centric in a balanced, harmonious way.
Yes. Yeah. Through humane occupation.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think similar actually, but so this side, without education, it cannot come.
No.
Inherent, there is no trace of it in any human born. And previous journeys, if he had these in previous journeys, then also he has to start again.
Relearn.
This sounds a bit counter like intuitive, because this seems like any child, human child, will behave like an animal, like in that sense. But it's a mix of both. Like it's not like he is very cruel, he or she, or like he's very unjust, or like it's a mix of both. Like obviously.
Let's come to what is justice. What is this? I'd like to define it. Let me talk about it. Note it down. Okay. So we go back to our. So this is comparison. Then, at the level of desire, desire is basically for living happily. A basic, most fundamental desire, and this is what governs our chit, is to live happily. So we plan our life, we design our life, we make a lifestyle. All these things are through desires. Right? Desire is something powerful. Right? Desire is something which governs our actions for long term. Whatever you desire, you work for it. You make a program for it to achieve it. Right? So desire leads to planning, leads to execution, to achievement. But why is the desire there? It is there to live happily. So we need to verify whether that is happening or not. Right? So for planning, to understand things in interconnections and things, visualization power is needed. Right? When we see the interconnections of things, we see the relevance of things. All this is happening in visualization. Right? What is contemplation? Contemplation is defined here as the activity of finding the purpose.
The meaning.
Hmm?
Meaning. Purpose is large.
प्रयोजन को पहचानने की क्रिया का नाम है चिंतन. So, finding the purpose, right?
Contemplation.
Contemplation. So when we start aligning ourselves, how will the purpose, what is the purpose in this situation and how will it be fulfilled? This thing is called contemplation. So some of our living before realization is without contemplation. But after realization, after education, then we start doing this process actively. So this yellow color basically indicates those activities that are active by default from birth. And the gray activities, half of comparison and rest 5.5, these are for knowledge or for harmony. 4.5 activities are for body and therefore they are active since birth. And these can be awakened through knowledge. This is what the process takes place when we study coexistence or study natural laws, natural regulation, natural values. Yes?
So contemplation is, study comes under the contemplation.
So study has all of these, but contemplation is the highest level of it. Right? So because to study you also need to choose reading, then experience that, also analyze and compare, also visualize. But finally the study completes by identifying the or recognizing the purpose.
And how come, like, the inward activity is for?
I'll come to the inward outward.
Can you say what you said again?
Hmm?
His answer. Same gave me.
Okay, he asked the study is contemplation. I said in study all the activities, all the 6, if the contemplation is active, then all the 6 will be involved. Study for knowledge, and the study for knowledge and contemplation will also be there. And if the study goes further, it will also go to enlightenment and resolve. And if the study is really successful, which is the spiritual awakening, then it goes to realization and evidence. That is the completion. That is where it becomes irreversible. Awakening. Full awakening.
During the study, the visualization will still happen.
Yeah.
And during the study, the contemplation will also happen, but partially.
May happen.
May.
May.
When you said contemplation may happen, what do you mean by that?
I mean that if you are trying to understand the purpose, then it will happen. If purpose is not your objective, then you're just looking at the information and the visualization part, then it will not happen.
Can you give an example of contemplation?
And visualization.
Example is basically that, that we talked about what is human purpose. Right? Huh? What is human purpose? We talked about this earlier in the class.
Coexistence. And universal well-being.
Universal. So how did we come to universal well-being? So this is like on the second, third day we were talking about this. So the whole dialogue on collaboration, common purpose, all that. So that exercise, when we start thinking on our own about these things, without any pressure from outside, then thinking, what is my purpose? What is the purpose of this whole existence? What is meaning of life? All these things. This is contemplation.
So you're saying that the moment I'm questioning things, that can be termed as contemplation?
No.
Like if I don't have the answer, then I'm just pondering over questions. What is that?
Purpose.
I did it. What is contemplation is defined as the activity of recognizing purpose. So there is some process which goes on to identify the purpose in a given situation or given circumstance.
No, the recognition will happen afterwards, but before recognition is a questions come.
That is comparison analysis before that.
Comparison and comparison of
Whatever it is. These are names of activities. So what is the topic of study? So like for example, we are trying to understand human relationships, for example. Right? So what is the purpose of human relationships? What is the need of human relationships? Right now in the mainstream, relationships are a barrier.
One suggestion, can we use the Hindi one because it's very confusing the terms.
This is English workshop, you come to the Hindi.
No. It's okay.
I'll share the Hindi one also with you, but what I'm saying in this workshop, this is what we have to do. I'll share the Hindi one also with you. That's not an issue. That helps. You want the names? This is choice is Chayan, experience is Aswadan, Vishleshan, Tulan, Chitran, Chintan, Bodh, Sankalp, Anubhav, Praman. With Pramanikta, Vitambra, Ichha, Vichar, Asha.
For the English words that we've been using here, since we were saying that the definition that we are giving in this is important,
Yes.
by any chance do we have like an appendix of what, I mean, each word what we are defining? Is it like available in JV?
It is available in Hindi and there is also a version in English, but that's still a work in progress.
Okay.
Right? Because even Krishna and I differ in a lot of things, how we see this right now, what translation. So we can share the list with you, like Krishna likes, probably won't call it experience here. What would you call it as far as?
I just translated taste.
Huh?
I just use taste.
You use taste. Okay. Yeah, right. And she uses the experience word there at Anubhav. I use realization. So, because we are translating and we're not, I am very weak in English. And the meaning is not in the word actually.
Yeah.
What connects you is when we talk about, when we explain things, that is what communicates. Words are just a medium, just a carrier of the meaning.
So I don't think English has proper word for certain things.
In Hindi also the same issue comes. Because there these words are there which are defined in a different meaning. Now, if you've driven car for several years, you say, मुझे कार चलाने का अनुभव. That is not the अनुभव we are talking about.
It's a new language.
That you have to remember. Initially it is a little awkward, but after a little while you get used to it and then start using this meaning, you get it. And the real problem comes because we are not used to looking at things in this manner. That is why associating this meaning, we by default try to take the word and go to the meaning we already know. So this is where the effort is needed. What meaning is this word meaning? That is the real dedication. This is the dedication required here in this word. What is the meaning in which this word is being used?
What thing it is pointed to?
But for a first introductory workshop, these many things are there in Jeevan. These many faculties are there. That is the basic thing. Then, you want to say something?
No, complete.
Huh? So, even though you might not be very comfortable with the words, just know this, that the conscious has many functions. Okay? If we were to look at this in two ways, that these are the functions which are needed for running the body, to be alive. Along with this, all the functions, when they function, that is meant for living as a human being, living happily, living in harmony. All 10 are needed for living in harmony. That's the main criteria.
Another point of relevance of this table, I think at this point, that I find is that now that we know that these are the activities that are going on within me, at each moment, like we were discussing, our basic ability is to be able to observe. So at any moment we can see that I am experiencing something and I'm choosing something. That means I'm hoping for something. So at each moment I can judge, was this experiencing or this choice fulfilling or not?
Yeah.
Then at each moment there is some comparison, some analysis, that means some thought happening in me. So every moment I can evaluate again. Was this kind of comparison and this analysis that I did, was it fulfilling or not? Was it satisfactory? Or was this sort of visualization, this desire that I had, was it fulfilling or not? So it's only when we observe the activities that we are doing that we can actually work on, like if we don't observe whether it was fulfilling or not, then we cannot make a conscious decision on whether we want to continue that way or whether we want to do something about maybe changing it, improving it, or something like that.
Basically, the message is, when we did the table of Jeevan, body and human, in that we said Jeevan needs fulfillment, and that fulfillment is its well-being. Fulfillment in terms of mental fulfillment, mental well-being, or physical, material, social, ecological, right? So fulfillment is our need. So we must, this is a check we must keep doing with ourselves. Are we being fulfilled or not? Whether we are doing this, whether we are doing this is like really breaking it down to small activities. Or you look overall, whatever you're doing. Like the behavior I'm doing, the way I'm behaving with my wife, the way I'm behaving with my daughters, the way I'm behaving with my colleagues, is this fulfilling or not? That is the check you can use. And then you can probably take the help of this framework. But if it is not fulfilling, then what could be the thing? So maybe I'm missing out on something.
Yeah, we'll start off with the macro. Was that behavior of mine fulfilling?
Yeah.
If not, then why? Was the issue at my level of choice? Was it at the level of my analysis, at comparison, visualization? Where was the issue?
Yes.
Also, visualization, isn't that an inward activity?
Right?
Like we visualize it at our in the mind.
No, see, how did you come from, where did you come from? Dehradun, right?
No.
Or no, Muzaffarnagar. So, how did you plan this thing? Did you visualize it or not? So, is that inward or outward?
I visualize it in my mind.
In my mind, all these activities are in your mind.
Then what is the difference between inward and outward?
Yeah, now that is the question. So inward is for my conscious, raising the level of awareness of the conscious. Those activities are used for raising the consciousness. So it's for your inner development. Outward activities are for expression.
But then experience is for to run the body.
Huh? No experience. What about it?
It's yellow.
Yeah, so
You measurements to run the body. Like,
Yeah. So see, the inward activities, they don't have only single function. Right now, we use these 4.5 activities just to stay alive or to enjoy the sensations from the body. That is one function activity. Then when I was doing that diagram of that with that figure and that idea, action, result, right? That whole diagram. There I said the study takes place through the body and your imagination. So when you're studying, these activities start doing that role of taking inward information. Like that. For studying, for raising your awareness, you need experience, you need comparison, you need contemplation, you need enlightenment, and then realization.
These are all engaged with the body.
Yeah.
And it is expressed in resolve, like my enlightenment is expressed in my resolve.
Yeah.
That's what
True
you're
resolve.
calling
Yes.
outward and
Yes.
what is happening inside. Like,
So enlightenment will, once I am enlightened, I have understood things, say, and I want to live according to it. So there will be a resolve in me that I want to live like this. I've been living in one manner on some basis, but now that I've seen the truth, I want to live like this. So this determination or this resolve will be there, and then that will start expressing. Yes. You see me waiting for that. Yes.
I was just saying, like, I wanted a confirmation from you also, is keep till the point of contemplation and visualization we reach, but then the people around us and who are in authority and whom we revere also, inward things are saying some other things, like something, a procedure in medicine, which is written in the text, the protocol, everything. The authority also approves it. But in my experience, all these things when I passed, my heart, whatever we say, Chitta doesn't approve of that.
Yeah.
I think, I'm just saying we get stuck into that and the mind is a little confused. And then you have to take a step further that what your inner voice or whatever your Chitta is saying and what is coming.
So when we say my heart, it basically means my Jeevan. It basically. So we might have made a table outside here to show that what all is happening. It's like saying my hand is here, or my, or better example, like I have a liver, I have a kidney, I have lungs, I have brain, all these organs are there, right? To understand. But the body functions as one unit. All are participating all the time. Right? So when you say my heart is saying, it actually is my Jeevan. In my conscious, this is the feeling I get, this is the emotion I generate. Right? And I'm not able to decide whether I should do this action or not. Then you use your some inspiration or some intuition to make a decision at times. Right? Yeah. Yes, sir. No, mine is not working.
So is it possible to describe the feeling of enlightenment or realization?
Yeah. So it's basically understanding of natural laws, natural regulation and natural balance. That is enlightenment.
Okay.
Very clearly defined.
Okay, just to check if this is not a deceived realization, and like how do you check?
Conduct. Harmony in human relationships, harmony in human nature. So all checks are there at that level in conduct.
Okay. So conduct is the only check.
And conduct is evident to all. Harmony is evident to all. For that you don't need to be enlightened. To recognize the harmony you don't need to be. But to live in harmony you need to be enlightened. Yes.
I think it might be easier to understand this from just my perspective. So if we divide Jeevan into two parts, one which interacts with the body and one which does not. So the part which does not interact with the body becomes the inward activity, and the part which interacts with the body becomes the outward activity. So the choices we make, the analysis that we do, the visualizations, the evidence. So evidence is actually, I mean, it results in certain activities that we will do eventually. So yeah.
Yeah. So it is not something that we have thought out logically and written these things. These are actually observation of how the Jeevan is working that has been described by the observer. So what is written here is how it happens. So it's not my choice to change it in any manner. So maybe my limitation is my ability to communicate it to you what is being said here. If you're not understanding, then it is my responsibility, my failure at explanation. Because you're trying to understand, but I am not able to.
Can I try?
Yeah.
So there are two factors. One is engagement with the body, and the other is inward and outward.
Yeah.
So these 5 activities, they are going to be engaged with the body. When we are not able to do comparison in its entirety, then it's only 4.5.
Yeah.
But otherwise, these 5 activities are all engaged with the body. They're receiving the signals from the body, they're processing the signals from the body, and they're engaging with it in that way. But this inward and outward is slightly different. The inward, so let's look at the outward. The outward is not just a choice acting on the body, it's also the visualization acting on the analysis and comparison, and the analysis acting on the choice and experience. So it is outward even in itself. So it is the Jeevan going outwards from inside rather than just from the Jeevan out to the body. And inwards is like the experience is experienced, and that the juice of that experience then becomes fodder for our comparison and analysis. Then the juice from the comparison becomes the
essence.
Yeah, essence from the comparison becomes the raw material for our contemplation and visualization. So that is the difference between inward and outward. Whereas the 5 here, 5 that are engaged with the body and the 5 that are engaged with knowledge, there is a difference between the kind of realm in which the nature of raw material that it is working.
This will explain that better.
Yeah. One more. This is all to do with the house, and the spiritual dimension is all about the whys. Oh.
What happened? Yes.
I want to just take an example and run it through the inward activity. So let's say I choose some experience based on likes, dislikes, health, properties, and the comparison part is where my...
So you'll experience something.
Correct.
Now the interpretation of this experience, did you like it or not?
Yeah.
Did you find it healthy or unhealthy?
Correct.
Did you find it profitable or unprofitable? That process will also take place.
Correct. That process will take... Oh, I was thinking I'm going to choose that before I experience something. Okay,
So that also is possible.
Yeah.
So it can go from a previous experience. I enjoyed eating that.
Yeah.
I want to eat it again.
Like that, okay.
Like
yeah.
So I really like it. So I want to experience it again. Therefore I'll make the choice. That is also happening.
And before eating it again, I might want to figure, oh, is this, let's say just try to this.
Like we say, like today the puri chole wasn't as tasty as last time.
Yeah.
So we have some.
Or I had it last time and I fell asleep, so I will choose
not to
one puri and one chapati like in your case. So yeah, let's say, so that's the comparison part of it. And then comes the contemplation.
Yeah. So
Third
this
one is
will
very confusing.
Yeah, so what's
Third one is
the...
very confusing.
So what is the purpose of that all I'm doing?
वो तो comparison में पता चल गया ना, that whether it's
That is
just
not the purpose.
So
That is my preference.
I think this is contemplation.
No.
This is comparison.
The right side.
Right side
That is
also.
also a comparison.
In comparison, there are two. One half is active from birth, and the other half becomes active with knowledge.
And can I say something? Last time, from last workshop, I asked you, I'm asking again, that when are this, on basis of this, our comparison gets activated, like we start doing on the basis of this, our comparison, right
Which one?
side,
Okay.
then our other faculties also gets more activated. So I'm saying that is why I think understanding contemplation is so hard, because it's not an
Hello.
experience.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry, I got distracted with the putting on the mics. Just say it again, please.
I'm saying when we start operating from the right side in our decision making, in comparison, then like you said that
This
these
will only
levels-
happen if knowledge and harmony are our highest priority.
Huh.
It is not a choice we can, I'll start doing with justice today. It will require, I mean, this choice has to be made, that decision has to be made, but it will require some work. Right? It won't happen like that, first of all. Now, that knowledge is my need and harmony is my need. For harmony, I need to live in harmony in my relationships. So therefore, I want to be just in my relationships. So this is the criteria I use for making decisions now. So it is food, whether it's education, whether it's occupation, whether it's caring for somebody. Now, justice is the reason because of which I'm doing it, not because of likes, dislikes, suitable, unsuitable, or profit.
Yes, I'm saying
Mic.
when we start get at that
Use the mic.
stage. Can you put the next slide?
Preview?
Like, yes, this one. So I'm saying, right now we're doing comparison mostly on basis of likes, health and profit. And when we start doing comparison, it comes in our practice on basis of justice, righteousness and truth. Then then contemplation comes the next stage. So I'm saying, maybe that's why the contemplation, understanding contemplation is such a struggle, because it's not, we're not able to rest, we are able to see. This is
not active right now, so
this
to
is not
relate to it
active.
is very difficult.
Yes.
You're right. So if living justfully is my need, living in harmony is my need, and therefore I want to be just in my relationship, then I have to think about purpose of each and every relationship. Therefore, without contemplation, I will not be able to be just or righteous or
okay. So it's not like only up, downwards up, but upwards also down. But
yes,
con-
both kinds.
Yeah. In contemplation, we'll understand justice, and in comparison, then we'll be able to use that understanding to decide whether this was just or not.
Can you repeat that?
So, through contemplation, we understand what justice is. It's a factor of knowledge and understanding in education.
So in comparison, we are just checking, was this just or not just, and in contemplation we do what?
Understand just hota kya hai, what is justice.
At a deeper level and
Educating ourselves on justice.
yeah. Okay, got it. So I think
I'm glad somebody said that.
in experience and comparison, it's somewhat in a kind of default se kuch to chuna would happen to be just righteous and whatever truthful in nature, which I figure in comparison and contemplation it kind of becomes, more of a it gets rooted.
Small correction.
Yeah, through education it gets rooted into you.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
this just righteousness and truth doesn't happen by chance. This is just with awareness.
Hey, like let's say I've chosen something based on likes, dislikes, health, profit, blah blah blah. At that time I did not think, is it going to be just, is it righteous, is it truth? Correct. So I've chosen something based on all of this, and then I compare it, comparison happens and it aligns.
No, it won't happen like that. It is a conscious decision to be just. It cannot happen without knowing.
But that can happen only after contemplation when I choose it again in my life, the same experience. But
so you have, that's why while studying, the contemplation will take place. See, what happens is, I want to live justly. So I want to make just decisions. So my comparison of justice is now demanding that I live justly. But I still do not understand what justice is. So I have to contemplate what is justice. So the need is coming from here, that I want to live justly so that I can evaluate my actions or my thoughts or my contemplated action as just. But this contemplation is needed. So purpose first has to be identified. Purpose and harmony, this is identified in contemplation. Then I do an action. I express it.
that's what she meant by it's top down and bottom up. Correct? Okay, ऊपर से अच्छा. Okay, but if I think of one example that has happened in my life, when I think about that, that choice just happened to be just and righteous. Like I'll just give you that example. Like let's say one day it just.
Can we do this once I define
Yeah, of
justice?
course. Yeah.
You have to define justice.
Done.
Because
Yeah.
without that, this discussion
Yeah.
will keep on meandering.
Okay.
Can I just
Yeah.
explain one scenario? So, let's say Buddha. So
let's talk.
I mean, just for understanding contemplation.
No, how can we understand? We don't know Buddha.
No, I'm just slowly say.
How? There is no reality in that. No, it's a story.
Let's say me.
Huh?
Let's say me.
Okay.
And I saw some injustice. I don't know what justice is, but I saw there is some discrimination happening based on.
We all see that happening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
On say, let's say, caste or something else.
Right.
So then I contemplate, is this just?
This is not about somebody else's actions, first of all. Your action.
No, I'm just trying to understand that.
That's what I'm saying. You
What
can't
context?
understand with somebody else's actions. You have to understand with your actions. You can't apply it on others. You're always going there, on the other. You have to apply it on yourself, your action. Say with your wife, are you being just or not? With your mother, are you being just or not? With your friends, are you being just or not? That is the example you have to take.
So you're saying that if I'm pondering over that, then it's contemplation.
Pondering over what?
Whether I'm being just or not.
Keval pondering doesn't work. Harmony has to be my need first. Is it a need is something which you can't live without. Need is defined, wants and needs. The difference is I want tea. Where I don't get tea doesn't matter. I just feel a little bit of discomfort and I move on. But need is something you can't live without. So you do all your efforts to fulfill your need. But till the time harmony becomes your need, you will not have the need for justice. You won't even think about it. You'll use some filler, something else to just get over it. Harmony, living in harmony has to become our need.
So if something is bothering me, bothering as in it's just I'm not able to live with it. Let's say I'm being unjust in a relationship, and if I can see that I'm being unjust and I'm not able to live with that, then that thing what I do is contemplation, and then I visualize.
No,
what?
Still not. Still comparison only. So you have to, because you want to live in harmony now. So in this relationship, what is the purpose of this relationship? When you identify that, that is contemplation. You've not identified it, what is contemplation? You could simply be doing comparison analysis. You're just thinking about it or visualizing about it.
So you said that I visualize my route to from Patna to here.
Yeah.
That is visualization. Now, how is that related to contemplation? If that-
There is no contemplation in coming from there to there.
Yeah, but how is it?
Huh?
Like how is that visualization happening at the chit level? That is still, I think.
It is. Do you agree? It is visualization. You thought of, I'll sit in a car, drive for these many hours, reach there. This is the route. You looked at Google Maps or whatever.
Yeah.
Right. This is visualization. Right? Yes. So I'm just saying this visualization activity is at level of chit. Where visualization takes place, we are calling it chit.
Okay.
I just want to add one line.
Yeah.
The process of comparison, once that justice, that whole thing is comes about. And somewhere I feel that comparison gives rise to, through contemplation obviously, gives rise to desire. The desire for
living in harmony.
Yeah, living in harmony, and that gives birth to visualization.
But that desire
Yeah.
can be there earlier also.
Yeah, for sure, no doubt about it.
Desire to live in harmony, therefore contemplation.
Absolutely, and now I see the connection between those two and visualization.
Yes.
Because that's the key to make it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So now, how will I do this?
Correct.
How will
Yeah.
I create harmony?
Yeah. Yeah.
Now that needs to be visualized.
Yeah. Now contemplation is like extremely,
And also on the journey to understanding,
Yeah.
at one point we feel like, okay, analysis, just while analyzing, I feel like, okay, I'm getting a lot of things. So just while comparing, maybe when we go beyond that, we feel like when we formed a good visualization or structural logic of how things fit with each other, like, I seem to have understood something. But when we try to live through just that, we find this is not sufficient. Then we feel the need, we need to go beyond visualization also.
Yeah.
There's something deeper there.
Yes? Yeah.
So the resolve is like that resolve that you make inside of you.
Determination.
Determination.
So another response to what Arpan was saying is that for this to happen, we need to look at the larger picture. So it is not in some small instance that I want to do justice in this and there is no connection with other things. This will always be based on what is the human purpose, what is the purpose of society, of the family, of the individual, of the relationship. All this has to be understood. Then only you are able to contemplate. This cannot happen in isolation. So it is not a small event or a small thing. It is always in relation to the entirety. And when we talk about the harmonious coexistential order, then you'll see that why that picture is needed to us. That whole universe being an orderly thing, why it's so important. Right now we are used to looking at things in small events, in small, time and space, very small things. This we are talking about something which is universal in terms of time and space even. We'll come to that tomorrow. Okay? Okay. Thank you. Take a mic. That is always one. Give the other.
I came in between this slide, sorry. So, what was meant by imperishable forces? Like powers, I understand, it exists even if you explore it or not, probably. So, what is?
So, like in our body, we have the energy to do work, right? When we do work, we exhaust this energy. It diminishes because we have used it. Then we have to replenish it. Then again we can do something. So this is called perishable, right? But our conscious, like you can think of any thought, but your ability to think more is not depleted. It is the same. You can do any desire, your ability to do more desire is always there. So in that, by utilizing these powers or these forces, they don't diminish. in that sense it means impression.
And the forces as well.
Yes. Okay.
Anubhav is practice? Like, no. It's not.
Realization.
Yeah, but like authentication.
It's the final cognition of the fundamental truth is Anubhav.
And that gives us authentication?
Yes. Because now we know the fundamental reality and the basis of the entirety. Therefore we understand everything at every level. So therefore we are aligned with the existential order, and therefore every moment when we express ourselves, there is evidence in the background. So therefore we are authentic.
In Hindi, Anubhav mein, mere Anubhav mein jo, whatever they say, it's experience, right? Am I correct?
That's the old language.
That's the old. Anubhav is realization.
They said that taste.
Yeah. So today we'll send these slides also, and we'll send the Hindi also to some of these, right? At least this chart I'll send.
And tomorrow we can still stay
Yes,
with
yes,
this.
yes.
And there are no English for the
These are names, so we have used those names.
No, we came up with some work.
Yeah,
and
so
working
that's still
names.
work in progress. They will do that. But we can see Jeevan, we don't need to change it, no, it's just a name.
Actually, what is language doing is identifying to object.
Yeah, it's a tool for identifying.
As long as we are able to identify.
Okay?